welcome to Her Tribe. 2 weeks back, when we recorded our first episode on Back to Roots, some of the most significant things that struck me was that there was a sense of immediacy, a deep-rooted passion and determination to bring change. Each of our panelists shared a deep connect with their roots, their homes in the Northeast, something that only motivated them to tell their story to the world. Yes, speaking to Rita. Rita was the subject of the film made by Her and Now, and today we are all set to listen to your story, Rita. Rita is the founder of Dhriiti and the musical Folks, two outfits born in a home state, Meghalaya. While Dhriiti makes traditional black clay pottery, an indigenous craft of the state, Rita, as a songwriter and singer, is keeping the folk music of the Khasi Hills alive through her band, the musical Folks. Welcome to the show, Rita. You live in Mumbai and you serve Meghalaya's traditional black clay pottery to the world. What does being an entrepreneur from the Northeast mean to you? When and how did you discover your identity? And how did this identity of a Meghalaya woman transcend to forming your business, Rita?
It's actually very simple, like when I was in Meghalaya I was born and brought up here in Meghalaya and Shillong. And I moved out quite young. I was 19 years of age and I left for my studies, and I was working in Mumbai for almost a decade, and I think 2010 is when I came back to Meghalaya, and I was taking up this one consignment with NISP Shillong for over 2 years. I think I was there, and that's when I think I realized that I wanted to connect more to my place and the situation that Meghalaya was then. When I was young, and after I came back, I think after almost more than 15 years. So when I came back, I realized a lot of shifts, that happens around me. Not just with the people around me, but also the environment mainly around me. So that's when I thought maybe I should be here. I came up with an album in 2013 called Musical Nature. And that album actually came out because I've written these lines because I see there's a lot of, issues in terms of the way the environment is. I noticed a lot of things being baked out from the state, and a lot of people are shifting their talent to something more convenient instead of doing something more relevant and sustainable. So the approach for me from the beginning is a very sustainable approach. So when we came up with that album, it's actually more like an ecological art project. So that project actually helped me to kind of connect myself further in that journey. And I started off with the musical instrument makers in Waken. When we came across the small village in East Khasi Hills district, I learned a lot from that. Like 3-4 years, we connected and we played music, and it was very inspiring to me, and it motivated me to actually continue that with many other crafts. So then pottery came along, where it's in the village where I come from. I went back there, and this is in Tenke Hills. When I went back there again, I realized that there's so many things we can combine, so it's a very simple thing, not that I planned it, but it just grew organically with time.
Yeah, Rita, you've grown beautifully, though organically. And we people from the Northeast mostly look for government jobs. And I think those are the only opportunities that are also available to people from the Northeast. And people like you are changing that step by step. So could you share a little more in detail about your entrepreneurial journey?
Yeah. When you talk about people working in the government office, yes, there is. The main thing is that people look forward because there's a lot of security. And starting up your own enterprise is a risk. Most people don't want to take that risk. And eventually, I think with the lack of employment and people like migrating from the state, because they move out from the state in search of better opportunities. So I think with time, I think the world has also changed. There's a lot of connect, whether we are in Meghalaya, part of the Northeast, or whether we are in another part of the continent. We're still able to connect with each other. We can still. It's not like before. So I think with time, there are a lot of other opportunities that can open up the youth over here to kind of start up their own business, explore and connect on their own. So government jobs, if you look at it, it's there, it is secured, um, but when you look at the number of people, when you look at the population, I don't think so. It's a sustainable way of looking at, trying to sustain ourselves by just waiting for, the government to give us that platform. So with Dakti, since we are working with a lot of people in the craft clusters in Meghalaya, especially people who come from the background where we don't even can imagine that they can work with the government. So we eventually had to share what we have learned and combine it what they have and maybe help each other. So I think in that small village where we started working, people were not full time into craft. They were farmers. They work with many other activities, daily wages. But I think after we started our enterprise in 2014 is when we actually gave them a little exposure and then we started promoting their product. So now I think over the years, in the past 5-6 years, they're continuing with their craft and now they're doing a full-time, activity in their village.
From your experience and your journey, would you like to share some tips or advice to anyone, the youth who want to be an entrepreneur or have their own startup? Any tips or any advice you'd like to share?
Maybe one thing is, if you are passionate about something and if you want to pursue that, you have to believe in it, firstly. And you have to take few steps, very challenging steps, because based on our enterprise, it's very challenging because we are actually very independent. We don't have any support from the government per se. So eventually, I think the youth, this generation especially, they should be aware of the kind of opportunities that is there, and they should try it out in every way and take these challenges forward and, let them express their passion in a more unique way where they can actually share it with the rest of the world, even though we are in a very small part of India, where it's not been recognized for many years. I would like to share that as well because I've moved out of the state. Since I've moved out of the state, I've gained that exposure. I've kind of experienced certain things, that maybe people, if I would have been stuck over here, maybe I would not have been able to do it. It's very important for people also to explore and experience and also learn from outside. And to be practical is mainly if you're doing something, you have to be able to sustain that. So we have to foresee things ahead of our time. Maybe we have to do whatever we do, we forecast and we see that, okay, it's going to work, and we have a market. There's a lot of things involved in the background. But
that's wonderful. You're also doing a great job of working with the local community. So can you share some of the challenges you face working with the local community and the youth, and how do you?
There are many challenges. In the beginning, especially because when you have to go and tap these spaces and when you have to tap these crafts, you tap these people, you have to really understand them. And most of these people who you work with, they lack exposure. They lack a lot of things which we've seen maybe since we moved out. So I work mainly in rural communities. So for me, it took time in the beginning. It took time because even in a state like Meghalaya, there's so many dialects. Even if I go to East Khasi Hills, there's different dialects there. But yeah, of course, like communication is not that much of a problem. But mainly, I think to make them understand, the value of what they do, to uplift their craft, to uplift their platform, because I feel like over the years they realize that what they're doing is not paying them off well. They're not able to sell. There's no market for them. There's no kind of a support from anywhere for them. We go and do these trainings, but after few months, you go back to that village, you don't see any activity happening. So we want to make sure that if people are keeping that interest, and we have to keep pushing ourselves and keep telling them that there is things will take time, but I think we are very fortunate that the Takti things have moved like in a good way, in a good direction, where people started believing in us, and we have a very good relationship with the craft people. When I went back to Lanai, I think there are hardly any people who, I mean, ladies, just always a woman handling the pottery bit. But I can only see older women who are still practicing. I don't see any younger generation who wants to learn. So for me, the challenge is to connect with the youth and, to connect with the younger generation. A vision that, what they can take forward is very valuable, and change their way of thinking, because I think what the craftsmen think that if they've been doing this craft for many years, it's not really working out for them, so they send their children to school to look at government jobs. Mainly the agenda is to pass and to go forward, and it's a very competitive world. Look for jobs, but they don't see that what they have is actually a lot, that they can give. Because in 2020, when the pandemic started, I think our business didn't stop. We still had orders. Since it's a work from home and it's in a community where it's very isolated, nobody from outside, they were able to work. So the schools were shut. Then most of the mining activities, all the trading had stopped. So because of that, I think we got this opportunity where we could connect more, because a lot of people came back, to their hometown. They came back to their villages. So I think when this pandemic happened, a lot of these youth realized that, okay, why don't I just help my mom? So in the family itself. So especially in this village, the Shang village that I'm working, it's not just now the older women, but actually the young kids are also trying to understand this way. We are creating a lot of interesting designs for them to, just to play around with the younger kids. So that really helped. And also with coal mining, because there was a ban, most of these younger boys used to go and practice. Those activities have come and shift their interest with this craft. So it was challenging, but I think the time also helped us. And this year, I think we made profit more than any other time since the time we started.
So, before we end, we'd like to hear from you. What are the changes that you'd like to bring to the region that would enable entrepreneurs like you to do better business?
I would say that we should support this kind of business, especially. There has to be a lot of support. There has to be a lot of support also from the government, and also agencies that can back and encourage the youth. I think the system has changed now. Even when you look at education, people are able to create their own enterprises, even if they learn from their own homes, their own spaces. So I think future like enterprise like Dhriiti, we would like to work with as many more youth and communities, train them further, and maybe create a more sustainable environment, and also try to balance. I think, like I said, there's a lot of compromise. We can't really always think of profit, but we have to also think of giving back. And also when we do that, I think it's very natural that we will always get back something good. I believe in that. So opportunity like helping, especially in the rural communities, especially in education, when you talk about schools, we can learn so much from the craft which is already existing here. There's a lot of knowledge, traditional knowledge. I think the government should create that kind of a platform, or, agencies or communities or people who can, back these kind of funding where, we are able to create the space, the platform to learn and to share. At the same time, create a space where we can live, and create a livelihood which is sustainable.
So true. Sustainability is the only way forward. We need to promote and practice sustainability in all ways of life, not only doing business. Thank you so much, Rida. It was lovely hearing your story, very insightful and very inspirational. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for your time, and I'm really glad to be a part of this group. Her now has really been, we've been in touch. I live in a village, where my communication level is very, very low. I cannot really communicate that often, but there's always a way to connect. Like today, I'm here, so I'm grateful for that, and thank you to you too. And you have, I'm sure that with this initiative, I think we will be able to change a lot around us.
Yeah, together, let's create a tribe to support, inspire each other.